Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juice in the Numbers, your statistics and sports podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Tracy.
And I am Corwin Heller.
And welcome to a Thursday episode of the show. It is, as we're recording this, Wednesday, July 27th, the final Juicing the Numbers episode in the month of July, which is startling based on where we are with some baseball stuff. About 7 o'clock here on the East Coast. So the Yankees Mets game part 2 of the Subway Series is about to be underway, which always feels more important than it is. At the end of the day, it is a 2-game set against a National League opponent, which, boy, howdy, doesn't mean much, but there's always that fun little knife twist of being a intercity rivalry, much like Angels, Dodgers, Giants, A's, Houston, and the Rangers isn't quite the same because it's like across the state, but still. Anyway, lots been going on since we last talked during the All-Star break. There's still some stuff that we need to catch up on. So to that effect, Corin and I figured we would probably be best served to just go over some bigger topics that have been inundating the airwaves and Twitter sphere as we ramp up to the trade deadline.
Do you actually listen to any sports news?
I listen to sports talk radio for approximately 6 to 8 minutes a day when I'm driving to the gym and home from the gym, because it's not enough time to make it worth setting up my phone and picking a song.
Very fair.
And if we're being honest, of that 6 to 8 minutes, usually 2 to 4 of it is commercials because of the times I leave.
I think the only time I have listened to any sort of sports discussion outside of like the broadcast going along during a game has been like the 2 or 3 times I've been at my parents' house where like there's just nothing going on and there's nothing on TV. And they have cable. And that's the only thing I think we could all agree is like palpable to listen to.
It's so infuriating because it's not like it's people that share a mindset of you and I. And it makes it very difficult to listen to because, especially with the nature of truly dedicated sports talk radio, which is we have 4 hours to fill. We just did this yesterday. There's not enough happening. Let's talk about our personal lives, on our personal beliefs, which never goes well. Also, New York specific, listening to Boomer Esiason is infuriating. That's the stupidest man on the face of the, you know how infuriating it is listening to a former athlete and also conservative white dude talk about player salaries, changing which side of the argument he's on based on how he personally experienced it or feels about it. It's so what, because like he's a former athlete, so part of him wants to side with the athletes, but he's also like a conservative white dude who's like pro business. So he'll complain about NBA player salaries, which just throws on that layer of racism. And then at the same time, he'll be like, but the owners are taking in too much money and the players unions have to fight for larger contracts in baseball. And it's like, ooh, buddy, you cannot have it both ways. And man, there's some dynamics undercutting this that don't seem so good, man. Hate it.
Oh, of all of our favorite people in the world, none of them are sports broadcasters.
No, and universally, none of them are. You go by the nickname Boomer.
You know what? I don't even want to say broadcasters because there's a lot of like color commentators and broadcasters like at games that are awesome. Mudcat, Don Ursillo, utterly amazing people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the talk show hosts.
Exclusively the talk show hosts.
Yes.
But anyway, not what we're going to talk about. But one of the things that talk show hosts have been talking about a lot, because it is an ever dynamic topic, with not necessarily a deadline approaching with the deadline, because it could still happen beyond the deadline once the regular season reaches its conclusion. Juan Soto possibly being traded. Now, this had happened, or this availability had been mentioned just prior to the All-Star game. So this was an active discussion last time we had recorded, but with the All-Star game happening and our mid-season bowl prediction update needing to be done, we didn't really want to dedicate just a spare 3 minutes to it. So this has been a thing for about it's 2 weeks. Essentially, Juan Soto turned down a contract offer from the Nationals. I just opened my banking app instead of my calculator app. Not helpful. To the tune of $440 million spread over the course of 15 seasons for an AAV under $30 million of $29.3 million per season. Now, while $440 million would make him one of the second highest paid or second largest contract in MLB history, just behind Mike Trout, I believe. I don't think there's anyone in between that would be in between the two of them.
Can't think of any.
It very likely, well, one, it would be a lower AAV than we see even today. And when we're looking at contracts that will be existing, still within their expiry date, 10 years, 15 years out, where AAVs will certainly be climbing. Having an AAV be low for today is definitely not a good look for the value of that player, and not just the player's personal responsibility to themselves to argue for the largest contract to benefit themselves and represent their production monetarily. But it's also not good for the communal good that is players asking for the most money they can receive in order to move the needle forward for players to come later and for the future of their positions. So people acting like it's crazy to see someone turn down a $440 million contract, but it's like, unless it was over 8 years, I don't know. Yeah, good on dude. You're 23. Good call.
Yeah, 23, and God, I wish I had the list of names in front of me that have his WRC plus, his on base percent, like whatever the very broad variables were that you wanted to put him in certain company of other players, benchmark him essentially. It's unanimous Hall of Famers and guys who you would find on the Mount Rushmore of baseball at 23 years old. So the idea of him not getting a gargantuan absolute albatross of a contract is a non-starter.
Yeah, just to give you one of those lists, I suppose. I'm running a query in Baseball Reference for most WAR through age 23 season. Actually, hold on. What's Juan Soto's WAR for this year so far? Oh, Jesus. I might have to adjust this because Baseball Reference, I'm not sure we'll include him in this thing. Hold on. Juan Soto, really? That's actually quite surprising. I would have expected him higher. Is 28th. Bryce Harper had more WAR through his age 23 season.
His career WRC plus is 154, which is equivalent to Willie Mays, higher than Hank Aaron's. He has a higher career on base percentage than Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
OP. I wish the whole
OPS
list was here.
Instead. Still, 28th is pretty fucking amazing.
Such a good tweet. I wish I could find it. I wish Twitter was capable of, searching.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Oh, this was fucking.
Yeah, so I got it to work after setting a minimum of 500 games played, which as of right now, Juan Soto has played in 560 games in his career. He is fourth all time for OPS plus through an age 23 season. He is behind Ted Williams, Ty Cobb, and Mike Trout. It is then Juan Soto. And then he is ahead of Eddie Matthews, Mickey Mantle, Jimmy Fox, Mel Ott, and Roger Hornsby, and Archie Vaughn to round out the top 10. Ken Griffey Jr. is at 12.
Sorry,
it's just
what was the factors in that? Like what was that?
OPS plus through age 23 season, minimum 500 games played.
Yeah, OPS without the plus, he's seventh highest behind Ted Williams, Albert Pujols, Jimmy Fox, Willie Wells, Joe DiMaggio, and Mel Ott. Mike Trout was 10th.
And to see these guys become available, and so this is one of the that's one of the reasons. Jesus Christ, this is one of the reasons that this is not a 3-minute subject, is because the fact that he's even becoming available, because all the names that Core and I could rattle off that have this level of production within their age 23 season, or even slightly beyond, or even greatly beyond, because, when you're talking about 4 years, it might not seem like a lot in a life, but it's a lot for a career within baseball. A lot of these guys are lifers. And part of that is because of era, if you were playing pre-Curt Flood, you were playing where they told you to play. You had no choice. So obviously there's a little bit of that, but even beyond that, and if you're not lifers, you were minimal organizationists. You know what I mean? Like Pujols has 3 organizations to his name, and one of them is the Dodgers for like 3 months, and because you don't let these guys go, they don't become available like this. It doesn't happen. We've been talking the past couple off seasons about how big of a deal it's been that we've had free agency even be achieved by Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, and Carlos Correa at their age 27 seasons. How big of a deal that's been, because a lot of teams don't, quote unquote, let their players get there by offering big contracts during ARB years to buy out a few ARB years and to push their free agency a little bit farther into like the latter portion of their prime, So, all right, we'll buy out your ARB years for something that looks like a premium to receive a team-friendly AAV on what would have been free agency years. And now instead of hitting free agency at 27, you'll hit it at 29 or 30, which brings down your market value when you actually do hit free agency. So it's a little bit of that trade-off. So even just to have that recency bias of seeing these guys hit it at 27, that's a big deal. 23? 23. With a 15-year scope. That's the thing. Like, the Nationals' current ownership, the Lerners, I'm pretty sure are looking to sell this team. I think that's been out there, that they're not necessarily in this for the long haul. What's the harm in offering Juan Soto I don't know, $600 million contract with just a lot of it backloaded into the last 10 years? Or the last, I'm being.
It should be backloaded serious. Because if you're signing him to a 15-year contract, the average AAV for a player in 15 years is going to be stupid compared to the lens we're looking at for this year. You could sign him to $1 billion contract, and in 15 years, unless he busts completely and falls off the face of the earth, it might look like a pretty standard deal.
You know what the AAV is on a $600 million deal over the course of 15 years? It's $40 million a year. That wouldn't even be a record AAV today because of Trevor Bauer's contract with the Dodgers. Now, granted, that was a short-term deal, but still, like, Giancarlo Stanton's AAV is like 36, as is Garrett Cole's. It's a 10% increase in max AAV. And again, this could be backloaded so that the last 5 years of the contract are like $45 million a year. And I'm willing to bet 10 years down the road, when you start jumping up those numbers a hair, even if it's up to $50 million a year, who the fuck cares?
No one. Absolutely no one.
And And isn't it just such a bizarre thing to stop at $440 million, to stop just shy of 30 million, $10 million of total value, like $667,000 a year. Why you do that? Why you do that? Seems so petty.
I don't know. Do we have an idea? Like, we've done the numbers that I'm sure you don't have in front of you, what one WAR is worth?
We've estimated it out
season.
usually just but somewhere between $8 and $10 million.
So him being 23, him averaging like 6 WAR a season, that's actually low because we have the shortened season in there. So let's say 7 WAR a season he's going to be averaging. What do you pay him as a 23-year-old?
I honestly, the more I
what
look
is
at this,
fair market value?
the more that I look at this $600 million contract that it seems so ridiculous to stare at on my phone, the more I think that kind of is what you give him. Now, he does have 2 ARB years left, so the Nationals don't have to do anything. There is no pressure. This is unlike the Bryce Harper situation that the Nationals also had, in that if they don't get something done by August 2nd, I think is the trade deadline, then it's not like that's it, folks. He's walking for nothing. We get nothing in return, because they have, again, the option to trade him come winter meetings and all of next season and blah, 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 blah. One does get the feeling that there's some urgency around this. Part of that could just be this year's playoff push. Part of it just could be because, fuck, man, it's a cool thing to talk about. So let's write a bunch of articles. But that urgency might be slightly manufactured because it doesn't have to happen. Now, assuming it does, he has to go somewhere that can both accommodate his what will be gigantic contract, because I can only assume that this is going to be a trade and extend situation like Francisco Lindor. I can't imagine someone's going to trade for him for 2.5 years of ARB years and then just let him walk in free agency. That would also be dumb for aforementioned reasons of, we're talking about dudes from the 20s level of pre-integration levels of unfair, ridiculous stats, right? For a young player. Stupid. So it would again be dumb to let him walk like that. So it would have to be a trade and extend. So you'd have to have the money to do that. And we know what the starting point is. High. And you have to have the farm system capable of making this enticing for the Nationals. And between those two things, I don't want to say it's tough to see which teams could do it, because theoretically every team could give him a 15-year, $600 million contract, and most of the teams just pretend like they can't. But it does, assuming normal behavior or assuming irrational behavior as standard, it does winnow down the field a touch. So to that effect, Corwin, what teams do you think are realistically in play for Juan Soto?
The Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Mets. I think they're the teams, the only really 3 teams capable of giving out a $600 million contract. I don't know if he's going to, like, what it comes back to is Juan Soto. The only guy you can really compare to Juan Soto in skill level, age, and like the numbers that he compares to is Fernando Tatis, 23-year-old with a career line of, a 965 OPS, massive hitter, skill out the bejesus, and he signed for $25 million a year for 14 years. I get that Juan Soto is viewed in a higher light, viewed in a better light, viewed as a more skilled, long-lasting player. I'd love to see the Padres make a move. I don't think they have the money. They have the prospects. I don't think they have the money to sign him to a deal. I know the Cardinals have been a team we've heard of. They have the prospects and the players to get him. Do the St. Louis Cardinals have that kind of money? I genuinely I don't know what teams have the bankroll to support a $40 million player over 15 years. Isn't there some rule where you have to put a certain amount of the contract in escrow when you sign a player? Is that a thing?
I don't know. That I don't know.
MLB contracts.
Contrary to what I'd like to think, I don't know everything about contracts, particularly gigantic mega contracts in sports.
Uh,
The tough part about having a stationary mic is that I feel like I have to keep adjusting it based on how good or bad my posture is. Like every time I feel like, oh shit, straighten up.
From 2009, I don't think that's
too low now. So if we're to look at MLB farm system rankings, preseason from 2022, so these obviously are would be adjusted a little bit now, based on call-ups and the draft that just took place. Actually, I could use one that was post-draft. So yeah, let's do that. Number one would be, hold on. Is it still the Orioles? Yeah, it's still the Orioles. Now, and see, this is where I don't want to sit here and say the Orioles don't have the money to do that, because again, every team has the money to do it. They choose not to. If we look at team payrolls for this year and think about room that they have to move forward, the Baltimore Orioles have the lowest payroll in baseball this season. It is $46 million, which means if they signed Juan Soto to a $40 million a year contract, it would be effectively doubling their payroll, which they could do because an $80 million payroll would still be in the bottom. An $86 million payroll would genuinely still have them in the bottom 5 payroll in MLB, which is hilarious. So, yeah, I think they can do it pretty readily, unless you're going to try to convince me that the Orioles don't have the same spending power as the Cincinnati Reds, who have $70 million more dollars committed onto their payroll right now this season. So you said, wow. What's your wow?
I think the Cardinals have the money to sign him to a $600 million contract. Their payroll is 12th, which seems, wow, that's high. Their highest salaried player is Adam Wainwright at $17.5 million. This is the final year. This is the final year of his deal. Miles Mikolas is the only other player above $5 million. He makes 16.75. And he has this and next year remaining on his deal. They have no money committed whatsoever. This is insane.
Yeah, if we look forward to next year's payroll, 24 guys committed on the Cardinals roster for $84.6 million. That's less than the Tigers, less than the Cubs, less than the Giants, the Rangers, the Twins. It's less than a lot of teams. It's 18th. It drops down to 18th in MLB. So yeah, I would $40 million would put them right above the Angels, right below the Atlanta, to put them at number 10 in MLB. So yeah, I think they have. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know much about their ownership, but yeah, they absolutely have the money to do this.
Well, and
they
they've
have
shown
the players to do it.
And that's what I was about to say. They've shown a willingness to move on from prospects to get top talent. Because they're not a team like the Rays, where they're constantly moving on from guys on their current roster to collect prospects to flex their development abilities. to, find some sort of skill set arbitrage that can save them some dollars on payroll. That's not actually what the Cardinals do. They have very good player development, but they're willing to move on from guys to acquire dudes like Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, who they made trades for. They made good, aggressive trades for. Granted, the Arenado trade is insane for a whole different set of reasons. But those were aggressive trades where they moved on from I don't want to say they're absolute best prospects, but good, really solid prospects that could have been contributors to them in the future, and left to bring in guys that have today contribution skills. So yeah, I like the Rays. I don't think would do this for that exact reason. I don't see the Rays moving on from a stable of like 8 dudes, because I think it would be too detrimental to their philosophy and to the way that they run their business. Not that it would like hurt the nerds' feelings, but I don't think that they're equipped based on the churn that they exert in their system. I don't think that they're equipped to necessarily do that. So I think the Cardinals could be pretty good pick.
It's what's actually crazy is the only hole on offense that they have where they don't have a truly plus player or prospect that's very, very good is right field. Like he would fit into that lineup and that or not rotation, but the field so well in St. Louis. The only problem is they have no pitching.
But they have great defense, which helps with the no pitching thing. Yeah.
Right.
So the Cardinals were actually also number 2 on the post-draft prospect or farm system leaderboard. Number 3 is the Dodgers, who we have also seen be very willing to part ways with prospects to get win now talent. They just did this with the Nationals last year to get Trey Turner. Was that last year to try to get Trey Turner and Max Scherzer?
I think that was at the trade deadline last year.
Yeah, because that wasn't COVID. So yeah, it must have been last year. They just for 2 really good prospects in Josiah Gray and
Keibert Ruiz.
God, I could never keep Keibert Ruiz in my head. And those were like Josiah Gray is starting for the Nationals right now. Granted, he's been having an up and down season, but still, like,
so it's Keibert Ruiz.
Yeah, top end talent for a farm system. So, and we've seen payroll does not matter very much to the Dodgers either, rightfully so, especially because they have a lot of money coming off their books. A lot. Right now, the Dodgers have the highest payroll in MLB, $261 million. Next year, as of right now, 60 million of those dollars come off the books. 159.4 committed to next season so far. 4th, less than the White Sox. What are they doing? The White Sox have the 3rd most money committed next season.
They have a lot of really good players. It's what I would say management being their problem.
Oh, the White Sox. It hurts to see. Oh, you poor Socky buddies. Oh, man. Yeah, so the Dodgers are right there. Interesting here at number 4 for farm system. The Detroit Tigers. They're not going to do this, right?
No, they're not going to do this.
They wouldn't show the money for Manny Machado, which was a layup for them to have done. So they're not going to do this.
They have a lot of problems. None of them happen to be the size of Juan Soto.
The Texas Rangers have the number 5 one. They've shown the willingness to spend money. They just had a big offseason with Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. But I'm not sure. I know they have the prospects, but I think they really need them. It's not a team in a position, I think, to purge that many players.
Jack Leiter would be gone. I imagine Kumar Rocker would be gone. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. So the rest of the top 10, I'm just going to power through real quick. Number 6 is the Mets. We'll return to them in a moment. Number 7 is the Twins. I doubt they do it. I don't really have a good reason why. I just don't think that they would. Number 8's the Pirates. Same answer as
Jesus, the Tigers. Just looking at their depth chart, man.
it's just gonna make you sad.
Oh
The
my
Pirates aren't gonna
God.
do it because of a combination of they're bad at trades and they don't spend money. So get right out of here with that. Number 9's the Yankees that we'll return to in a moment. And number 10 is the Rays, we have mentioned previously.
You know what I just saw yesterday that blew my mind? Do you remember how upset I was when Andrew McCutchen got traded from the
Yes.
Pirates? I, to this day, have stood firm that that was one of the worst deals ever. Just completely gutted the city and the team, and just from a locker room and fan perspective, just the worst thing they could have done, and no reason to do it. I realized that they got Brian Reynolds in return, and it's like the best trade they've made in the past like 10, 12 years. Which takes a lot of wind out of my sails because Andrew McCutchen was my favorite player, but still, like, they had one good trade.
That's the thing. I still wouldn't classify that as like they got a good player back, but they could have built around Kutch and tried to go to the playoffs, a second
Right.
time.
Context is still key.
Yeah, like they didn't fuck themselves long term because they did get a good player back for that, but it's like, fuck you guys. You could have done it.
In a vacuum, if they didn't make any other trades, trading Andrew McCutchen for Brian Reynolds as he is now probably would have been the right move if you were building for 2021, 2022. They were absolutely not doing that. So it is a ridiculous trade to make.
I would like to argue the Pirates' best trade in the last 10 years is July 31st, 2017, when they traded Tony Watson to the Dodgers in exchange for Angel Herman and Oniel Cruz.
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
Tony Watson, who has been had a fine career. He's played for a long time.
Closer for a while, I think.
Yeah, he has no saves.
Power.
No, yeah, he couldn't be. He has no. That's game started. Yeah, he was. He was your closer in 2016.
Back when I still watched.
Yeah.
He was an okay
Angel
closer.
Herman has not touched the majors, and I don't see playing stats since 2019. And Oniel Cruz is having himself a pretty nice start to his career.
Pretty solid case for Rookie of the Year if he plays out the rest of the season.
All right, so
he's actually not having spectacular numbers, but he makes a lot of really fun plays.
All the skills are being shown, which is by far the most important part. Like he's showing that the capability is all there.
Wait, hold on.
If you're in line, stay in line.
I need 10 seconds.
We keep talking about Mission Impossible.
Oniel Cruz is 3 weeks older than Juan Soto.
That's fucking insane. Oh my God. Wow.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
God damn.
Oniel Cruz was born October 4th, 1998. Juan Soto was born October 25th, 1998. Like 3 weeks to the day.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you could have 3 weeks to the day. That's just kind of 3 weeks, but regardless, that's funny. I will say Oniel Cruz is 5 inches taller though, so there's that.
He's got the length. That man can stretch.
Si, senor.
Anywho, jumping back real quick to the Mets and the Yankees, teams that you mentioned much earlier about possible trade partners. Again, yeah, it would both make sense that they would push the Mets payroll over $300 million.
Damn.
Not just for this season. It would push the Mets payroll, which right now is second in baseball at $259 million. Their payroll next season is also the highest in baseball at $213 million. And I don't recall the levels, and I'm not going to look it up right now because I have enough tabs open and my life is already chaos. But I'm willing to bet that additional money would set them well above a second layer. And as much as owners don't like doing it for seemingly petty reasons, eventually it will have consequences that might actually be severe enough to warrant the like competitive arbitrage of not doing that. Like there might be a competitive advantage in you actually trying to reset the luxury tax a little bit to not lose out on draft picks and have a terrible farm system. Because if you trade away a lot of your top prospects to go get Juan Soto, and you're constantly losing good draft picks because your payroll's too high, then I don't know how your farm system's ever going to get better. And when you start losing some players in free agency because you have to, because your payroll is $300 million, you're in a really tough spot. So could the Mets do it? Yes. But it would breed a lot of logistical issues for them. Whereas the Yankees, and I say this with genuinely no bias, are in a much more interesting position because while they only have $9 million fewer dollars committed to this year's payroll, next year, the Yankees are shedding, or at least are not actively re-signing, get this, $100 million of payroll. Committed to payroll next season, the Yankees have $145.78 million committed to this year's 250. A lot of money is coming off the books next year. A lot. Now, granted, some of this is going to have to go towards extending some players that you would like to keep, like one good old-fashioned Aaron Judge. However, you could sign Judge and Soto to two stupid contracts and still not make up the difference in what you're shedding this year as compared to what you're shedding between the start of next season and the end of this season. So it's very much so in their realm of capability, even if they don't make any other moves to try to avoid the luxury tax situation, which would also be prevalent in the Dodgers doing what they would want to do because their payroll is higher than the Yankees to the tune of $15 million heading into next season.
Outside Judge and Chapman, which I see are the two big ones, who else would they need to either re-sign or replace?
Okay, I would think Josh Donaldson, unless he's still
he's under contract.
Oh, well, that man is getting gone. I'll tell you that.
He's not. You're not bringing back Josh Donaldson?
Fuck no. Looks like Rizzo's still there, so I actually don't know. Is Jordan Montgomery?
How do you get rid of Josh Donaldson? Obviously trade, but
yeah, I would package him with
well enough.
I would package him with one of the shortstop prospects that we have. Because right now there are three really solid shortstop prospects within the Yankees farm system. And I think two really solid catching prospects. And I'm willing to bet a couple of those guys would be moved to help negate some salary. I'm sure they could find some creative ways to.
If only there was some trade that they could do to get rid of Josh Donaldson and replace him with a better player that they would want. Juan Soto.
Yeah, but I mean, the Nationals aren't chewing that contract.
So let's see. So the top two players in the farm system, Anthony Volpe and Oswaldo Peraza, are both shortstops. Trey Sweeney is their number 6 prospect. Austin Wells, catcher, is their number 4 prospect. I don't see another. Antonio Gomez is their 18th prospect. He's the only other catcher I see. But regardless, there's a lot of space there to make moves.
Yeah, whole bunch.
You also have an extraterrestrial as a prospect, so
which yeah, Jason Dominguez would absolutely he's been one of the few prospects I've hugged when it comes to trade talks. But if
I thought have you physically hugged him?
I have made I have been the first man to make physical contact with a Martian. And it was sweet, intimate love. But you got to think, best case scenario, Jason Dominguez becomes Juan Soto.
Yeah.
Best
case scenario, Jason Dominguez wipes Juan Soto's butt.
Like, we'd all like to say, hey, what if Juan Soto was like a switch hitter who played plus defense in center field? And it's like, yeah, cool. We all wish Mickey Mantle was just found once every 6 weeks somewhere in someone's farm system. That'd be super cool. He fucking isn't. Like, best case scenario, best case you could possibly fucking ask for, he becomes Juan Soto. Which, to that effect, why take the maybe he's Juan Soto, maybe he's Melky Cabrera, who's to say, and instead just go get Juan Soto. Like, if that's what it takes, it's one of those I'll pack his bags for him kind of moves. The other factor at play here that has been brought up a lot is Patrick Corbin's contract. As Patrick Corbin, well, oh boy, ever since the election didn't go his way, he's had a real rough go of things, which you'd love to see it. But he is signed to what is a garbage contract for the Nationals, as he has been very, very bad and is owed $24 million next year and $35 million in 2024. So there's a just about $60 million left on his really rough contract because he is super duper not good.
I think I saw yesterday
that negative 1.5 WAR. Sorry.
The drop from 2019 to this year, when certain substances were outlawed in baseball, resulted in like a 250 RPM drop, which is a lot. It's a lot.
His ERA from 2018, his last season with the Diamondbacks, to today, starting in 2018, 3.15, nice. 3.25,
not as nice,
4.66, 5.82, and this season 6.02. He leads MLB this year in games started. Oof. Because it doesn't get better from there. Losses. This is not leads the National League. This is leads MLB. Hits and earned runs. You owe him $60 million in the next 2 years.
What can you say to that?
So part of the thinking, especially in that fucking trade tool I see posting screenshots all over Twitter, I hate that fucking thing. It's so stupid. Is Patrick Corbin getting shipped off to other teams to help lower what would have to be returned in exchange for Juan Soto. Now, there's two mindsets to this. One is the Nationals, I'm sure, would love to not have to pay Juan Soto's Patrick Corbin's contract, which, yeah, I'm sure that they would love to not have to pay Patrick Corbin's contract. At the same time, if you are going to trade away Juan Soto, you have the opportunity to receive back a historic return, a truly like organization changing return. And if you include Patrick Corbin's contract into that, you will, by definition, be receiving less. Sorry, go ahead.
Like, the return that you are going to get for Juan Soto will be better than any other return that has ever occurred in MLB history. Like, this will be it. Like, this will be the benchmark. You have to bite that bullet, because the amount of money that you're saving and getting rid of Patrick Corbin is going to be peanuts compared to the value that you would have to surrender in prospects. It cannot work out.
Absolutely. And it's not like we're sitting here looking at a Nationals team that's in like White Sox territory where their payroll is stupid high and their season isn't going well. The Nationals have the 20th highest payroll in baseball. They're one position out of being a bottom 10 payroll in the league. Like they're like Corbin just said, they're not really losing out on much.
Just called me Corbin.
No, I said Corbin.
You called me Patrick Corbin.
As Patrick Corbin once said, I did storm the Capitol on January 6th. Oh, Patrick.
He said it, not me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason he wants to get a trade to Washington. I'm just saying. Look at his text.
Jesus
Hashtag
Christ.
FBI. But
wait, if he gets traded, say to like Toronto, how will that affect his committee hearings? Will he be required to stay in the country? Do we know if he's been subpoenaed?
Yes, but he's defying it.
Bastard.
Yeah. Hashtag not my president, not my courts. I think is his whole deal right now. Anyway. What were we just saying? Oh, as Corwin had just said, like they're not losing out on much in terms of payroll. Like you're not saving the money you're saving is meaningless. It's not going to impact your luxury tax. It's not going to impact your ability to sign future players or your ability to pay your ARB players heading into next offseason. It doesn't affect anything. And to that effect, you could probably find alternative ways to get rid of Patrick Corbin. Like this is not a do or die now or never situation. I'm sure. Like if hypothetically a trade happened with the Yankees, now just because I know the roster better, and the Yankees included a guy like Gleyber Torres in that trade, if the Nationals wanted to, I'm sure they could turn around and trade Gleyber Torres partnered with Patrick Corbin for some really shit return just to get his payroll off the books and to put Gleyber somewhere else. Like that wouldn't burn the Nationals very hard to do that. Just to move the contract.
Agreed. And that is significantly easier on the future than whatever it may be, than including Corbin in the initial return.
Do you think teams are going to call and ask to have Corbin's contract on the deal to help save them from parting with prospects? Or do you think that teams also value the monetary savings more and are hoping to avoid having to be saddled with Corbin?
If I was a general manager, regardless of what my payroll situation looked like, I think you have to do the due diligence of trying to bring that number down to the prospect value down and taking on Patrick Corbin. Because at the end of the day, like Juan Soto, your window is now 15 years. This is no longer all right, we have X number of years. You got 2 years left where, we have control of him. We have to do this now. No, you are signing him to a long-term deal. Your window is going to be whatever his window is, which by all means, it's going to be 15 years. I think you have to take that into account. I think you just bite the bullet on Corbin and save your future. Or not save your future, but set yourself up for the future rather than right now. I mean, how much time does he have left on the contract? How many years?
2.5. The rest of this year and then 2
plus 2.
Yeah.
Man, like it sounds bad. Like it sounds like a contract I wouldn't want to take on, and I would just want to avoid it completely. But that's just the way it is. You're going to have to do that. Think of it this way. Think of you having to pay Juan Soto the X amount. Let's say you sign Juan Soto to a deal, have it start after his 2 years of whatever his current arbitration, whatever it may be. Just view that as kicking in afterwards, and this 25 million a year is just added on to his. That's just the cost of Juan Soto.
And again, it can also work the other way in a world in which again, I'm just going to pick the Yankees because I know the roster better. In a world in which the Yankees trade for Corbin and Soto, they also can be like, all right, well, to get rid of Corbin, let's just package up a couple of other players. Like, let's try to get extra value from guys that are outperforming their current contracts, like Jose Trevino, or I can't some of the prospects that we didn't include in the fucking goddamn, what do you call it? Juan Soto hypothetical trade. If Ken Waldichuk ends up not being a part of that trade, like package him along with Patrick Corbin. Like, it goes both ways. You can find another alternative way to get Corbin off your payroll too, if that's really such a big deal to you, by moving on from other dudes. Money's imaginary. It's not real. We like to pretend it is. It's not real.
Especially in a world where salary cap isn't real. Not that it's not real in the way the NFL salary cap isn't real.
It's not real.
It does not exist.
Money is like pigeons.
Josh, do you have any major points you still want to talk about with Juan Soto?
No, I was actually just about to move on.
Yeah, because it's been 1 hour on topic 1.
Yeah, we're gonna breeze through the rest of these a little bit because they weren't as serious. Specifically the next one, which we are going to mention because it has been starting to be a discussion point a little bit, but the reality of the situation still seems rather tenuous. And that is, do the Angels move on from Shohei Ohtani and trade him? Now, this is made a little bit more interesting by the fact that Mike Trout, who is still hurt, has been told news that his back injury is rare and will be something he just has to manage for the rest of his career, which means things aren't going to be super duper fun for him, which might mean something of a reorg of the Angels to not have to put the weight of that entire franchise on his back. Combined with the fact the Angels have been super duper bad this year and have no depth and have a guy that is not saddled with a gigantic contract that they could also receive big value back from. So this is a tough one to talk about too much because there's not a lot of details. There's not a contract that they offered him that he turned down. It's still very hypothetical. But Corwin, what's your initial reaction to again, very hypothetical Shohei Ohtani trade? Unmute yourself, bitch.
If they have to trade Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout is just a shell of his former self from here on out, I think you just have to dissolve the Angels. You get an expansion team in Vegas. You start with new ownership. You start with a new team. Even if everyone from the Angels gets fired and rehired in Las Vegas, you just have to start from scratch and not have any semblance of carryover because that is just such a cursed franchise. I mean, if I was in the situation of sitting in the Angels front office and looking at the news of today, seeing what's going on with Trout, seeing the rumors fly around with Shohei, seeing what's happened on the field and what our future looks like, harikari, like seppuku on the conference room table.
Crying, eating, and masturbating just to avoid feeling pain.
It's bad. I mean, you can't move those guys. I think this is a you go down with the ship type situation. You fight tooth and nail to get a team around those two. You can't move them. Your fan base will be carrying pitchforks and torches down Rodeo Boulevard towards Anaheim. I don't know if Rodeo Boulevard goes towards Anaheim. I've never been to California. That's just the only street I could pull out.
Hang out with the coastal elites out there in Libofornia.
Jeez.
Yeah. What do you do? I honestly think it might be A's Oakland, like early 2000 Oakland A's level of destruction. I think you have to. You hang on to Trout because trying to move on from that contract is not going to give you good prospects. So there's honestly not even a good point in doing it.
The injury news.
Coupled with the injury news,
get value back.
Coupled with the fact that he's been the only thing fans have come out to the stadium for.
Especially since if you admit that you are open to moving the best player, arguably in the history of baseball, the lack of leverage you have, teams are going to be circling you like vultures. And the only hope is, okay, he's the best player in baseball. Every team is going to be, not every team, because not every team can afford him.
Well, you could retain contract. That is also an option.
Yeah. But at that point, what are you doing?
Getting prospects back. But I honestly think at this point, look, we've seen it every year for years where the Angels do everything that we could think of that they could do. Drafting all pitchers, getting two of the best players in the sport at the same time, picking up weird random dudes and trying them out. You know, like their development sucks. Their training sucks. You know, their coaching clearly sucks. Their bullpen sucks. Like everything sucks. And I think at this point, if you're going to trade Shohei Ohtani, you need to become out of necessity. You need to become the A's and the Rays and start trading people the fuck away from you, completely firing your front office and player dev departments and building from the ground up. Because what they're doing now is not helping. It's not working. And all they're doing is throwing money in a pit and lighting it on fire, which you and I, obviously, we don't care. Throw all the money away you want to. But if I was running the team, I would be like, all right, this is just pointless. This is pointless. Honestly, I think I could argue for Juan Soto to not be traded much more easily than I could argue for Shohei Ohtani to not be traded. I have so much more faith that the Nationals could figure it out than I do the Angels. It's a disgrace.
I have so much more faith that they will be able to do something in the next 15 years than the Angels are going to be able to. Yeah.
I mean, think about that time span. If I told Mike Trout debuted in 2011, won Rookie of the Year in 2012. So let's go with that. It's been 11 years of Mike Trout. It's been 11 years and 80 WAR of Mike Trout. Imagine the hope in the hearts and minds of Angels fans in 2012. The sheer joy of getting to witness this man win 3 MVP awards and likely, arguably, have been robbed of 4 others where he finished second. And know that you will have sniffed the playoffs once for 3 games against the Kansas City Royals in 2014 and never since. What do you do?
It's unbelievable.
And
it's really unbelievable.
That's why I think they got to blow the whole fucking thing. And I know this means the players. I'm not even trying to put this just on the players. Like, their player devs, their minor league coaching, their fucking single A bullpen coach has to go. Everybody, dude, it's fucking embarrassing. So, look, will that happen in the next 5 days until the trade deadline? I think 6, 5 days in the trade deadline. I doubt it, but it's going to make one hell of a conversation point in the next 3 months. So we mentioned the Trout injury along with that. Do you have any points about the Shohei Ohtani trade before we move on? I just want to keep the pace going a little bit here so we can wrap up.
No.
Then let's close out on the fact that the Baltimore Orioles are not in last place in the AL East. And my friend, it is July. In fact, it's almost August. I don't think we've been able to say this since 2017, 2018. I mean, incredible. And part of it's because the Orioles are currently 500, which hallelujah, or 505, I should say, just above 500. But part of it is because the Red Sox have decided that they hate the playoffs and don't want to go. I'm not sure which one's more impressive, honestly.
I mean, it's definitely the Orioles in my mind. Like, if you told me the Red Sox were finally going to falter and fall to 500 or one game under 500, I would have been like, okay, like that. Like, I see this team, I see this roster, this depth chart. It's not anything overly special. It would make sense if they had players regress and they as a whole regressed. If you told me that this Orioles roster was going to be over 500 this season, I mean, there's a reason I don't gamble, because I'd have nothing. I would have said that's going to be one of the safer bets that you have all season.
We are dangerously close to the trade deadline, which means that we are dangerously close to one of Josh's bold predictions coming true, in which the Orioles trade 4 prospects, 4 people, I should say, major league ready talent, which is nuts. And part of it, honestly, theoretically anyway, could come from the Red Sox, because they probably should be tearing down.
I am holding firm to the hope that they somehow land Juan Soto.
It would be amazing.
That would be, like, I couldn't even put into words what that would be. Like, that would be a truly remarkable turnaround in franchise outlook. I don't know what I could even compare it to.
I don't know either. Now, the Red Sox have a weird kind of thing going here with a few of their players. Players likely to be traded would theoretically include JD Martinez, who probably is out, honestly. This is the final year of his contract. He is an unrestricted free agent at the start of next season. So for a DH, an old DH, he's probably going to be gone. Go find some mild success somewhere else. Xander Bogaerts has been hotly discussed. Now, he has 4 more years left to his contract and a full no trade clause. He is very affordable at an AAV of $20 million per year, and as a player opt-out after the end of this season. So there's some other contract hinkiness going on with it, which would make this a little bit more difficult. But if the Red Sox are signaling a teardown and are likely to be bad, I don't think I'd be surprised to see a marquee player be like, yeah, fuck this, I'm out. Especially after seeing the Red Sox dick over Mookie Betts, and looks like they're about to dick over Rafael Devers, who is the third guy that would be very interesting to watch, because Rafi Devers has 1 ARB year left next season, and then that's it. They have not put a long-term deal in place. He has the rest of this year, next year, and then is done. A carbon copy of the Mookie Betts situation. And honestly, if I'm Xander Bogaerts and I see that, I think I might be ready to move on too. But for a dude who's been, I mean, killing it this year, 25, so also a young guy, 4.2 WAR this year, currently on the IL, but was a top 3 MVP candidate at the halfway mark in the season. If you're gonna sell this year, that's one hell of a guy to sell to try to restock your system. It makes some of the Red Sox moves from the offseason kind of fucking weird, like signing Trevor Story, which is going to look like a hilarious contract in a couple of years. But I don't. Do you think the Red Sox are sellers?
I feel like they have to be. They've been trying to band-aid it together for a couple of years now. And they have clearly been treading water while also sinking. They're barely keeping their head up, but they are losing height day by day. I think they got to start selling, and they got to start looking towards the future, because I get that there's window left with Devers and Bogarts, but you really just don't have anything else there to complete that team.
And you have to consider the fact that your two options at this point in time are to either increase payroll because you have to pay Devers, and you have to try to find some replacements for guys like JT Martinez, who at this point in time would be more expensive because JD's AAV is under $20 million a year. So you'd either have to commit more money to payroll to try to extend your window, or shed and try to build for 3 to 5 years down the line. And the Red Sox right now have the 6th highest payroll in baseball at $200 million a year in this year. So, given the fact that the owner hired Chaim Bloom to be their GM from the Rays, I think is pretty good guidance as to which direction they're likely to head in. So all that to say, it's going to be a very interesting, more so than usual, trade deadline coming up. We're again recording this on July 27th, which means there's only but a few handful of days away till the actual trade deadline. Our next recording date will be July 31st, which means we'll be not past the trade deadline yet, but very much so up against it. So hopefully by the time we record next, some moves will have happened that could be some indication as to where the rest of the market will be, because typically these things, the way these things go is once the dominoes start falling, things kind of ramp up as scarcity takes hold. So, we will see. So at our next Thursday recording on the 3rd, the trade deadline will have officially passed. So we'll be able to collect ourselves after the dust settles, but it could be a very hectic week. Granted, we've spoken heavily in hypotheticals, significantly more so than we typically do. So it could end up being quiet. It could end up being that a lot of this gets pushed into the winter meetings. Or it could be absolute fucking chaos. Who knows?
Chaos, please.
Chaos is the way to go, baby.
Chaos is a ladder.
All right, buddy. Anything else before we get out of here?
While we were going through all this, I saw that Brian Hayes is currently up to 2 DWAR on the season. Just past the halfway point, which is
nuts.
Fucking insane. So good on him. Everyone else, go fuck yourself.
I can get behind that message. I can get behind that campaign. All right. Well, then his outs above average, 99th percentile. Way to go, Brian. If you like to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at JuicingPod. Like to follow Corwin on Twitter, you can do so at Corbin Heller. If you follow myself on Twitter, you can do so at Joshua D. Tracy. If you like to send emails to the show, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And until Monday, y'all have a good one.
Bye.